For 30 years, Johnny Carson was the king of late-night charming guests on The Tonight Show, but not everyone got to enjoy the spotlight for long. Carson had no problem banning certain celebrities from ever returning, creating a surprising list of stars who found themselves permanently snubbed. In this video, we reveal the famous faces Johnny banned, and the juicy reasons behind their one-way ticket off the show. Kicking off our list at number 1 is none other than Howie Mandel, the Canadian comedian whose early run-in with Johnny Carson didn't quite go as planned. Long before Deal or No Deal made him a household name, Mandel was an up-and-coming comedian trying to make his mark in the world of stand-up comedy. But his appearance on The Tonight Show in 1979 didn't just go sideways. It put him on Carson's personal blacklist. Let's set the stage. It's the late 70s, and The Tonight Show is the holy grail of comedy. For comedians, making Johnny Carson laugh could launch a career overnight. The problem? Johnny Carson had a very specific sense of humor, more understated, dry, and controlled. Mandel, on the other hand, was known for his energetic, offbeat, and sometimes outrageous approach to comedy. Mandel's act often involved quirky props and physical comedy, which worked great for live audiences, but didn't sit well with Carson, who preferred a more traditional, verbal punchline style. When Mandel took the stage in 1979, he attempted one of his signature bits, inflating a surgical glove, placing it on his head, and using his nose to blow it up like a balloon until it popped off. The audience might have been ready for a good laugh, but Carson wasn't having any of it. Before Mandel could even deliver the punchline, Carson waved him off, visibly unimpressed, and dismissed the prop as if it was a child's trick. Carson's lack of amusement was obvious to everyone watching. What was supposed to be a breakout moment for Mandel turned into an awkward and humiliating silence, marking the end of his chances to impress the legendary host. But here's the kicker. Carson wasn't just annoyed by the bit, he actively disliked Mandel's entire comedic style. For Carson, Mandel's high-energy antics seemed chaotic and disruptive to the smooth flow of the show, a sharp contrast to Carson's preference for polished, straightforward humor. It wasn't just that one joke. The incident became symbolic of Carson's authority over his show. If you didn't fit into his comedy mold, you weren't welcome. What made Mandel's situation even worse was that unlike many comedians who bombed on the show and were given a second chance, Carson's rejection wasn't just a one-off incident. He effectively banned Mandel from ever returning to The Tonight Show. For Mandel, it was a tough pill to swallow. Being blacklisted from The Tonight Show could have been career-ending. But instead of letting it define him, Mandel pushed forward. He became a hugely successful stand-up comedian, starred in films like Gremlins, and later cemented his place in television history as the host of Deal or No Deal. His adaptability and resilience in the face of Carson's rejection showed just how versatile Mandel could be as a performer. It's fascinating to think that Mandel, who went on to have such a diverse and successful career, who would have guessed that the man who once faced rejection on The Tonight Show would go on to become one of the most beloved faces on television. Even Frank Sinatra, the legendary crooner, wasn't immune to Johnny Carson's firm grip over The Tonight Show guest list. Known as Old Blue Eyes and the chairman of the board, Sinatra was a dominant figure in both music and film, charming audiences worldwide. As the leader of the Rat Pack, Sinatra was used to being the center of attention, commanding stages and screens with his suave persona. Naturally, his immense popularity brought him to The Tonight Show stage, but things didn't go smoothly between him and Johnny Carson. The tension between Sinatra and Carson reportedly stemmed from more than just their personalities. Carson, known for his sharp wit and control over his show, was said to be uncomfortable with Sinatra's larger-than-life presence. Some even speculated that Carson's wariness was fueled by Sinatra's rumored connections to organized crime figures. Whether or not these allegations held any weight, Carson wasn't keen on allowing Sinatra to upstage him, and their interactions on air were often awkward and distant. Sinatra, on his part, didn't seem particularly interested in building a friendship with Carson. He wasn't exactly hurt by the lack of invitations back to the show either. After all, Sinatra had a bustling career in both Hollywood and the music industry, so missing out on The Tonight Show didn't put a dent in his success. However, the strained relationship between the two was undeniable, as evidenced by their stiff interviews. While Carson preferred guests who aligned with his Midwestern sensibilities, Sinatra's edgier image didn't quite fit that mold. One notable incident that captured the tension between the two happened off-screen. According to Carson's longtime sidekick, Ed McMahon, there was a memorable night at a piano bar in Manhattan's Jilly's restaurant. Carson and McMahon were preparing for an impromptu musical jam when, to their surprise, Sinatra walked in. The room fell silent at the sight of the iconic singer, but Carson didn't hold back. Frustrated by the interruption, Carson reportedly let loose with a profanity-laden remark, reminding Sinatra that he wasn't due to show up until later. It was a rare glimpse of the behind-the-scenes friction between these two titans of entertainment. While Sinatra's exclusion from The Tonight Show might not have had a lasting impact on his legendary career, it's a striking example of Carson's tight control over who appeared on his stage. Dana Carvey, beloved for his high-energy impressions and sharp comedic timing, became a standout during his time on Saturday Night Live, SNL, from 1986 to 1993. His characters, like the snarky church lady and his flawless impersonations of public figures, including George H.W. Bush and, ironically, Johnny Carson, helped him rise as one of the era's top comedic talents. Carvey's ability to morph into these characters made him a fan favorite and positioned him as a comedian set to dominate the entertainment industry. In 1991, with his fame at an all-time high, Carvey was invited to appear on The Tonight Show to promote Wayne's World, the feature film adaptation of the SNL sketch that had solidified his stardom. This was a prime opportunity for Carvey to further cement his place in Hollywood. However, instead of simply discussing the movie or reenacting familiar sketches, Carvey decided to perform what he did best: impressions. Among the personalities he chose to mimic that night was none other than Johnny Carson himself. What seemed like harmless fun to the audience, Carvey's dead-on impersonation of the iconic host did not sit well with Carson. Known for his authoritative control over the tone and content of his show, Carson didn't appreciate being parodied, especially while still on the air. His reaction was one of quiet disapproval, though he didn't make a public fuss about it. For someone who valued being in control, being the punchline on his own stage crossed a line. After this performance, Carvey found himself subtly blacklisted from The Tonight Show. Despite his immense popularity and his clear comedic brilliance, he was no longer welcome to appear regularly on Carson's stage. This behind-the-scenes decision marked an unexpected turning point in Carvey's relationship with the legendary show, cutting off a platform that could have further fueled his rise in comedy. The incident demonstrated Carson's unyielding grip over his show and the limits he imposed on what could be joked about, even by someone as talented as Carvey. Despite this, Carvey's legacy as one of the top impressionists of his generation remained untarnished. However, this behind-the-scenes tension highlighted the delicate balance performers had to strike with the powerful hosts of late-night TV. Kathleen Turner, an award-winning actress with a stunning career, unexpectedly found herself blacklisted from The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson. Turner, who skyrocketed to fame with her sultry role as Maddie Walker in the 1981 neo-noir classic Body Heat, quickly became a Hollywood icon throughout the 1980s. Her mesmerizing performances and striking presence made her a sought-after guest on talk shows, including several appearances on Carson's beloved late-night program. However, despite her growing popularity, Turner's time on The Tonight Show was anything but smooth. Rumors swirled that her backstage attitude didn't sit well with Carson. Turner, known for her strong-willed and assertive personality, reportedly clashed with Carson's preference for laid-back, effortless conversations. Carson, the king of late-night TV, valued guests who fit seamlessly into the flow of his show, and Turner's demeanor allegedly came off as high-maintenance and dismissive. Adding fuel to the fire, Turner was said to have made offhand remarks about not seeing the importance of late-night television, Carson's very bread and butter. Her lack of appreciation for the platform struck a nerve with the host, who prided himself on turning late-night TV into an art form. Feeling slighted by her attitude, Carson ultimately decided not to invite her back, unofficially blacklisting the talented actress from his show. Turner's sudden absence from The Tonight Show coincided with a noticeable dip in her overall visibility during that period, leaving fans to wonder what had happened. But Kathleen Turner was never one to be easily sidelined. Determined to keep her career alive, she turned her focus toward the stage, making a bold and successful transition to Broadway. Her performances on The Great White Way earned her critical acclaim, proving her versatility and resilience as an actress. Far from being overshadowed by her falling out with Carson, Turner's shift to theater allowed her to reinvent herself, ultimately securing her place as one of the most respected and talented performers in both film and stage. Her career revival showed that no blacklist could keep her down for long. Kathleen Turner was destined to remain in the spotlight, famously dubbed Mr. Entertainment, and Johnny Carson, the reigning king of late-night television, initially shared a cordial relationship. Newton, with his dazzling Las Vegas persona and commercial success, became a frequent guest on The Tonight Show, charming Carson's audience. But behind their on-screen chemistry, tensions were building that would ultimately shatter their professional connection. What began as lighthearted banter between two entertainment giants quickly soured. Carson, known for his sharp wit, often poked fun at Newton's appearance and mannerisms. While many stars could take a joke, Newton found himself increasingly uncomfortable with the personal nature of Carson's barbs. Over time, these jests became more pointed, specifically targeting Newton's masculinity, with Carson enlisting other comedians to join in the mockery. Newton, feeling blindsided and humiliated, tried to handle the matter behind the scenes. For months, he privately approached Carson, asking him to stop the hurtful jokes. However, Carson seemed indifferent, brushing aside Newton's concerns. Frustration eventually reached a boiling point, and Newton decided to take action. In a bold move, he publicly confronted Carson on national television, calling him out for the relentless jabs. But even this direct confrontation did little to ease the tension. The final straw came during a heated confrontation at NBC studios. Fueled by months of unresolved hostility, Newton stormed into Carson's office, interrupting a meeting with producer Fred DeCordova. There, he issued a stern warning. If the jokes didn't stop, there would be physical consequences. Though Carson downplayed the incident, the hostility lingered, creating a rift that would never fully heal. The feud took another twist when Newton purchased the Aladdin Hotel in 1980, a prized property Carson had long coveted. The move only deepened the animosity, and Carson responded by effectively blacklisting Newton from The Tonight Show. Anyone associated with Newton, even close friends, found themselves similarly banned from appearing on the program. This bitter rivalry between Wayne Newton and Johnny Carson remains one of the most notorious feuds in entertainment history. Their once promising friendship devolved into a saga of insults, confrontations, and professional excommunication, showing that even in the glitzy world of showbiz, personal slights can lead to lasting, high-profile grudges. Born in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, was the second of three sons in the Little family. His father, Lawrence Peniston Little, a surgeon and World War II veteran with the Royal Canadian Naval Volunteer Reserve, later worked for the Department of Veterans Affairs until his death in 1959. His mother, Elizabeth May Wilson, was a dedicated homemaker. Rich Little's heritage was a fascinating blend of English and Irish ancestry. His maternal great-grandfather, John Wilson, had served as Speaker of the 5th Parliament of Upper Canada in the 1820s, and his paternal great-grandfather, William K. Little, was a Canadian Member of Parliament from 1867 to 1881. Little's early education took place at Lisgar Collegiate Institute. In his teens, he teamed up with fellow aspiring impressionist Jeff Scott, who later ventured into politics. Together, they focused on mimicking Canadian politicians like Prime Minister John Diefenbaker and Ottawa Mayor Charlotte Whitton. Little's knack for mimicry eventually led him to Hollywood, where he gained fame for his spot-on impressions of figures like Richard Nixon and Jimmy Stewart, earning him a series of successful appearances on The Tonight Show. However, Little's star-studded trajectory hit a bump with Johnny Carson. Despite his initial popularity, his frequent appearances on Carson's show came to an abrupt halt after a 1976 episode where Little, without warning, performed an impression of Carson himself. Carson, known for his exacting standards and sensitivity, took great offense at the unexpected impersonation. The incident sparked a rift, leading to Little's exclusion from future episodes. In a 2021 interview with Sunday Morning, Little reflected on the fallout, confessing his confusion over the ban. "I must have said something to upset someone, or perhaps Johnny just grew weary of my imitations," he speculated, still unsure of the exact cause. Despite his attempts to seek clarity, he never received a definitive answer. Years later, Little and Carson had an unexpected reconciliation during a chance meeting at a Malibu restaurant. Carson approached Little's table, curious if he still performed impersonations of him. Little confirmed that he did, noting the continued enjoyment of his Carson impressions. This moment of mutual respect marked a peaceful end to their earlier tensions. Carson, reflecting on his post-retirement popularity, was reassured that his influence had endured, while Little remained grateful for the opportunity to mend fences with the legendary host. The rift between Johnny Carson and Joan Rivers is perhaps one of the most infamous feuds in late-night television history. Rivers, a trailblazing comedian and one of the few women in the male-dominated world of stand-up, first appeared on The Tonight Show in 1965. Her performance was so impressive that she was soon hired as a writer for the show, eventually becoming a frequent guest and even a guest host. Rivers and Carson had undeniable on-screen chemistry, and their professional relationship seemed strong, but that all changed in the mid-1980s. At the peak of her career, Rivers landed her own late-night show on Fox, The Late Show with Joan Rivers. This should have been a crowning achievement for the pioneering comic, but instead it led to her permanent ban from The Tonight Show. The issue? Rivers didn't tell Carson about her new venture beforehand. Carson, who had been her mentor and helped launch her career, felt betrayed. Rivers later explained that she had tried to call Carson to break the news, but when he answered, he gave her the cold shoulder. Carson's hurt quickly turned into anger, and he banned Rivers from the show, a decision he never reversed. Despite numerous attempts to reconcile, Carson remained unforgiving. Rivers speculated that his reaction wasn't just about professional betrayal, but also about gender. She believed Carson had a hard time accepting that a woman he had helped rise through the ranks was now competing with him in the late-night space. As Rivers put it, "I think he really felt because I was a woman, that I just was his, that I wouldn't leave him." Rivers never returned to The Tonight Show during Carson's tenure. Their feud became a symbol of the personal and professional challenges Rivers faced as a woman in comedy, and it wasn't until 2014, nearly 3 decades later, that she finally appeared on the show again, this time as a guest of Jimmy Fallon, who had taken over hosting duties. Despite her eventual success and enduring legacy, Rivers' fallout with Carson remained one of the most painful chapters of her career. Known as the iconic stand-up comedian famous for his self-deprecating catchphrase, "I don't get no respect," had a complicated and tense relationship with Johnny Carson. While Dangerfield was beloved by audiences for his rapid-fire jokes and over-the-top persona, he felt that Carson himself didn't fully appreciate his humor or the hard work that went into his act. This created an undercurrent of tension during his appearances on The Tonight Show. Dangerfield's comedic style, which was brash, self-pitying, and often filled with stories of personal failure, clashed with Carson's more polished, controlled brand of humor. While Dangerfield excelled at portraying an everyman struggling to get through life, Carson preferred a more refined tone on his show, which led to a few awkward interactions between the two. Another factor in their strained relationship was Dangerfield's prominence in the comedy world outside of TV. Dangerfield owned a successful comedy club in New York City, Dangerfield's, which became a popular venue for rising comedians. However, Carson's Tonight Show was seen as the definitive platform for breaking into the mainstream, and Dangerfield's efforts to promote his club during his appearances on the show weren't always well received. Carson's team, known for being protective of the show's integrity, wasn't keen on mixing personal business with guest spots, and this caused further friction between them. Despite these tensions, Dangerfield was always a hit with Tonight Show audiences. His unique style and quick-witted humor endeared him to viewers, even if Carson didn't feel the same. This dynamic contributed to the increasing gaps between Dangerfield's guest appearances. Though he wasn't formally banned, the invitations grew less frequent, and Dangerfield suspected that his style and independent success made him a bit too much for Carson's comfort. Ultimately, the relationship between these two comedy giants remained complicated, marked by mutual respect on one level, but lacking the closeness and camaraderie that Carson shared with other comedians. Even the glamorous American singer Lola Falana found herself unwelcome on The Tonight Show. Born Lola Falana, she became a well-known figure on American television during the 1970s, admired for her stunning beauty, charm, and undeniable talent. During her heyday, Falana was a frequent guest on variety shows and a regular on The Tonight Show, winning over audiences with her dynamic performances. But in a surprising turn of events, she was suddenly no longer welcome on Johnny Carson's famous stage. The reason? A seemingly unrelated feud between Carson and fellow entertainer Wayne Newton. While Falana never addressed the issue publicly, many speculate that her close association with Newton was the cause. Newton, another frequent Tonight Show guest, was embroiled in a long-standing and well-publicized feud with Carson, primarily fueled by their personal and professional rivalry. Newton's acquisition of the Aladdin Hotel, which Carson had shown interest in, further intensified the hostilities between them. An article from the Lexington Herald on February 4, 1981, suggested that Falana's exclusion from The Tonight Show was a consequence of Carson's grudge against Newton. Despite being sidelined by Carson, Falana didn't let the band slow her down. She continued to carve out a successful career, making bold moves in both music and television. In 1995, she collaborated with Catholic artist Joseph Lee Hooker to record the song "Don't Cry Mary," showcasing her continued influence and talent in the music industry. After stepping back from performing, Falana turned her focus to more philanthropic efforts. She founded the Lambs of God ministry, dedicating her life to spreading messages of hope and spirituality. Her ministry worked closely with organizations like Save Sub-Saharan Orphans, providing aid to children orphaned in Africa. When not on tour sharing her spiritual message, Falana leads a quiet life in Las Vegas. Her personal life was equally eventful. Between 1965 and 1968, she had a much-publicized affair with her mentor, Sammy Davis Jr., which led to the dissolution of Davis's marriage to Mae Britt. Falana later married Feliciano "Butch" Tavares Jr., a member of the popular R&B group Tavares, in 1970, but their marriage ended in divorce in 1975. Despite Carson's cold shoulder, Falana proved that being banned from The Tonight Show was far from a career-ending event. She went on to have a lasting legacy in both entertainment and humanitarian work, leaving her mark on an industry that could never quite keep her down. Lastly in our list is Sylvester Stallone, a cinematic icon of the 1970s and 1980s, found himself blacklisted from The Tonight Show. Stallone, who had soared to stardom with his role as the underdog boxer Rocky Balboa, was a household name. His portrayal of Rocky not only garnered him critical acclaim, but also cemented his place in Hollywood's A-list. With a career trajectory that seemed unstoppable, Stallone became a regular guest on Johnny Carson's legendary talk show, effortlessly charming audiences with his charisma and candid interviews. During the height of his career, Stallone was a familiar face on Carson's couch, promoting his films and engaging in lighthearted banter with the host. However, his appearances on The Tonight Show suddenly and mysteriously came to an end. The abrupt halt in his guest spots left many fans and industry insiders puzzled, as Stallone's popularity and success during this period were unparalleled. The intrigue deepened when Stallone was conspicuously absent from Johnny Carson's final episodes in 1992. His omission from Carson's farewell lineup was particularly striking, given that Stallone was one of the biggest stars of the era. This unusual absence sparked a flurry of speculation about the underlying reasons for his exclusion. Whispers in Hollywood suggested that Stallone's removal from the show was related to a series of broken commitments. Reports indicated that the actor was notorious for frequently missing scheduled appearances and canceling promotional events, a behavior that did not sit well with Carson. Known for his meticulous attention to detail and control over the show's guest list, Carson reportedly took offense at Stallone's perceived arrogance and lack of professionalism. Carson's decision to sever ties with Stallone was not just a reaction to these infractions, but also a reflection of the host's need to maintain a certain level of respect and decorum on his show. Carson valued guests who adhered to the show's protocols and showed up on time, and Stallone's unreliability clashed with these expectations. This strained relationship eventually led to Stallone being permanently removed from Carson's guest roster. Despite this setback, Sylvester Stallone's career continued to flourish. He went on to explore a range of roles, from action-packed blockbusters to critically acclaimed dramas, proving his versatility and enduring appeal. Stallone's resilience in the face of professional setbacks highlighted his ability to rebound and thrive, further solidifying his status as a true cinematic powerhouse. Stallone's absence from The Tonight Show serves as a reminder of the high-stakes dynamics between celebrities and talk show hosts, where even the smallest missteps can lead to significant consequences. Nevertheless, Stallone's impressive career trajectory demonstrates that even a ban from one of television's most influential platforms couldn't eclipse his star power.